Hello there, so skip to this timestamp if you only want to see my top 10 of 2017. It'll take us a while together because this is not a proper favorite maps video. Just a warning. As could be said about every year, OSU went through a lot of cool stuff in 2017. Mappers witnessed another Aspire contest to experiment with, rehauls of the Loved category, major restructuring for the nominator system, some ranking criteria developments, tons of unofficial mapping contests with great turnouts, and the list goes on. Looking at the development side of things, we saw the full release of Modding V2 paired with its inevitable community outcry, notable improvements to Laser's appearance and functionality, as well as even more that nobody would have ever expected. Then, to top it all off, OSU players and mappers were given a chance to look back on the year by voting for their favorite maps of 2017. This does happen annually, as detailed in a video of mine last year, though this year's poll has made some small yet appreciated changes. First off, it's been renamed from Best of 20XX to Community Choice 2017, which better reflects the, not quite best, but rather widely appealing maps that end up in the top ranks. Second, there's a new prize for the winning map's creator, a shiny profile badge. I personally value badges more than supporter, which has been the main prize in the past, so I really do appreciate this. And lastly, there's going to be a similar poll for loved maps somewhat soon. Overall, this is a nice set of changes for the year's mapping commemoration poll. So, okay, now's the time when you'd expect me to talk about my picks. Explaining why I chose my favorite maps of 2017 as determined by my 10 poll votes. Spoiler, that's not exactly going to happen in this video, so feel free to leave if that's all you're looking for. Instead, let's get meta for a few minutes. I don't think I'm capable of making a good top 10 video. I mean, I tried doing something like that last year, and I even announced it in the poll history video. I've already voted in the 2 for this year, though I'll save talking about my choices for another time. Yet, it never went through. There's 3 main reasons for this. 1, I didn't feel like a top 10 video would do my favorite maps of 2016 justice. It would only cover surface level information about what makes each map cool, so I alternatively chose to spread them out by talking about each one in its own video. Like, I analyzed Ruruchi's Exit This World's Atmosphere for 17 minutes in the Reputation video. I went over the unique difficulties of Monstrada's Can Do map set in the Gimmicks video. I explained what made Evil Twilight's Dragon Force map effective in the Nostalgia video, and the list goes on. Each of these individual videos covered what I liked about these maps way better than could be done in a shortened compilation. And as you could guess, this is also why a proper top 10 maps of 2017 video won't exist either. Like, look, enough stalling. These are the maps I voted for in alphabetical order. 1, Asian Distractive by Rego and YFBMP. I like both difficulties. 2, Goodbye to a World by Monstrada. 3, some anime remix by Handsome. 4, Impulse by also Handsome. 5, Nanatsui Senzakura by YFBMP. 6, Platinum Disco by Karen and YFBMP. As in, I like both difficulties again. 7, Reloaded by Handsome again. 8, Taiyo no Crush Seikita by Disco. 9, The Solids of Oblivion by Professional Box. In 10, Sunagaranai Sekai by Pinkheart. I covered some of these favorites in other videos of mine throughout the year. Reloaded was featured in the Limitation Maps one, Solace of Oblivion in the Aspire video, Asian Distractive and Difficulty Inflation, and Goodbye to a World in the Editor Efficiency and Alien videos. Bringing each of these up again in a top 10 video would basically be a condensed recap of those videos, which is not at all worth watching. The second reason why I avoided making a top 10 of 2016 video is because not every map has new ideas worth analyzing in a video. Handsome's Suika map, for example, was in my top 10 last year because it's a precisely organized map with a cool movement gimmick and some cute pattern evolution to show climaxes. It's not the kind of thing worth breaking down though, considering you got the gist of what I liked about it in one sentence. Instead of showcasing Suika in its own video, I just stuck it in like half my other videos throughout the year, sometimes in the stupidest of ways. This, of course, applies to 2017 as well. The first map on my list is here mostly because I like how it handles movement. 1/4 sliders in the Kiai have a sort of implied flow that, when played naturally, makes everything feel more extreme than the usual star-shaped jumps. The rest of the map feels great to play too, of course, and it's got a nice aesthetic, but, that's about it. I've talked about the value of implied flow in videos before, so like, recapping in a top 10 video would achieve essentially the same thing as talking about a map I've previously covered in depth. That's why you can find my other top 10 picks scattered in the background of other videos. There is one map on my favorite maps of 2017 list missing from either of these categories though. A map worth talking about that I haven't featured on its own yet, which, I mean, hey, might as well do it here because it's legitimately my favorite map of the year, Handsome's Impulse. I've heard this map hilariously equated to the Oscar bit of mapping. It was ranked right before the year ended, ensuring people remember it when selecting their top 10 and Mapper's Choice Award votes. And I mean, I guess it was successful at that since it's a pretty well appreciated map, but no matter when it was released, I feel like everyone would remember it. Impulse is like peak condition mapping. Yeah, we'll go with that. It doesn't have a single cool idea that carries it throughout the full 5.5 minutes, such as the symmetry on Reloaded. It's more like multiple of the best maps I've ever seen put together into one. The intro to the map really tries to make this obvious with some visual identifiers. It starts off with 3 big sliders. The first is smooth and curvy. The next is sort of mechanical with 90-degree turns and discontinuous straight lines. And the last is sort of a mess of curves separated by sharp angles. Each of these correlates to a part of the song and map. This section has a few of those big curvy sliders, the next has pipes, and the last has big blobs. Fancy sliders aren't all the map has to offer though. As I said, they're just identifiers. Within each of these sections, differentiated by obvious slider shapes, are relatively unique types of gameplay. In the first section, I'd say the focus is on complex stream construction. Most maps use basic lines or occasional spacing variation to represent 1/4 sounds, but Impulse goes with streams that use major spacing changes, forming patterns that look unplayable but are the opposite in actuality. Adding on to that, this section also features some unusual slider grouping patterns with progressively changing slider velocities, which stand out as the song supports thanks to contrast with the circle-based stream design around it. The next section is my personal favorite. It's the one with these high-speed pipes. This looks like it would be really hard to react to, but the map introduces the unexpected slider velocity of these weird sliders as best as possible. Even if you assume the first slider of the section is slower than it is, you won't necessarily miss because of the slider's tail position. Also, because this type of gameplay is unusual to play, the map gives players a long gap between it and the next object for recovery. The second half of this section focuses on gameplay with these short versing sliders, paired with occasional new 1/4 spacing after sliders and these new style pipes. The addition of these elements make the section feel like its own unique part of the song, while the visual style is still somewhat similar to everything else, allowing it to not feel completely out of place. The third section goes down a similar path. It begins with unusual fast sliders, which I guess aren't unusual at this point, then provides a large space between it and the next objects for recovery again. Then the second half of the section goes with an entirely new type of gameplay focused on single 1/4 jumps into reversing sliders. Even this focuses on alternating between two types of gameplay, one where you just move to the head, and the other where if you don't want to miss, you have to move slightly onto the body. And again, these elements separate this section from the rest of the map while still connecting it all with a similar visual style. That's also not even mentioning the calm, slower sections that further accentuate each of these main sections through the use of the same basic concepts to not draw attention. When describing his winning entry to a recent mapping contest, which was not Impulse by the way, Handsome said he used gameplay elements like streams and reversing 1/4 sliders in areas of the map where other entries didn't. This was because he wanted to utilize as many different tools the editor provides to express the song in as interesting of a way as he could. While that does apply to his contest entry here, I'd say that idea shines way more clearly through Impulse. It's a marathon of constant changes that mesh well together, all of which are engaging and masterfully designed. I personally don't think there's any other map out there that's executed something like this as effectively. This is why Impulse is my favorite map of the year. Anyway, that's enough real content. Back to what we were waffling about, the third reason why I hadn't gone through with the best of 2016 video. I don't always appreciate maps on their own. Most players download and play maps without acknowledging their creators. Only a few big names stand out to them and everything else goes by the wayside. That makes it really easy to judge maps as standalone products, as the end of the year poll encourages. When I play maps, I tend to think more about their mappers though. Like, if I play and enjoy a new map by mapper X here, I more often think to myself, X is a good mapper, rather than this is a good map. By playing almost every new ranked map for the past few years, I've vaguely kept track of how mappers developed, which influences how I look at their maps. So if I like a map from one mapper, there's a good chance I notice similarities between that and their other maps, making me like their other maps even more. The problem here though, explaining what makes a map good when it requires that mapper's backstory to fully appreciate is practically impossible, and is part of why a best maps video from me in any year would probably suck. All that said, I feel if I make a favorites of 2017 video, it would be most appropriate to talk about my favorite mappers of the year rather than a few of their maps. My favorite mappers are in their positions because they create what I enjoy, as is the same for everyone I imagine, but as a mapper myself, that goes a bit further. Each of my favorite mappers of 2017 became major influences on how I map. Monstrata's mapping throughout the year has affected me in two ways. First, his maps led me to pay more attention to patterning in my own maps, ensuring each object in my map is clearly connected. Not doing that is something I hate about my old maps. Second, his themed maps, as he calls them, were used as reference for some of my own themed maps. YFBMP appears on my list often because his visual style is one of the best in my opinion. A lot of my smaller circle size maps steal ideas straight from his maps, while others deviate in ways that might not be as noticeable. Movement in Pinkheart's maps is something I think about when mapping too, though I really suck at it. Disco is one of the newest mappers here, only ranking his first map in 2017, but he's still more capable than most mappers I know. His maps always showcase neat ideas with clarity that's hard to achieve, and I strive to achieve similar effect in my own maps. And Handsome, he's alright. So these may be my 10 favorite maps of the year, however there are only a few of their creators' maps that I enjoy. When you look at this list, or anyone's list of favorite maps really, I think it may be more valuable to pay attention to their creators. Unlike other forms of media, I'd say there's no one-hit wonders in mapping. An outstanding map isn't just a fluke or some lucky choices, but rather something built up to based on their previous catalog of maps, and seeing that mapper's progress can enhance your perception of a map. At least, that's how it is for me, so I don't really think I can make a good top 10 maps of 2017 video. Sorry. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Oh, and also, vote in Mapper's Choice Awards if you can. It's not as hard to do as last year, it's got new additions, and it's where you'll find the real best of 2017.